Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Well, welcome to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. Happy belated Mother's Day to all of the moms. I think I forgot last week when I was on my interview, but because that's, of course, we recorded a couple of weeks in advance. So my bad, but we definitely want to say thank you to all the moms, especially those who are actually trying and having to do a balancing act with everything that they're doing, or working in sport and having to do everything that they're doing. But just in general, we want to say happy Mother's Day, and we hope that it was a great day. Now, this guest, I think last week when we had Ann Whistling on, that kind of set up the precursor for this week. And I didn't know that. So let me tell you how I was freaking out just last night, which was the 11th of May. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do about a guest. But then I walked into the house after a weekend of rest. Like, I took the whole weekend just to rest and relax. I was like, oh my gosh, Miss such and such. Because I've been trying to get her on for a while, but she is one busy woman. And once I share everything with you, you'll see why. There are people who you come in contact with in this sport that really changes the way you view the sport. It changes your trajectory. It really enhances your experience. Volunteers make the day go by. And some people are in charge of these people. And this particular person is one who works with Kinetic Multisport. She is the engine behind the engine. You know, I don't know what that's called, but she's the engine behind the engine. Like, if the volunteers weren't there, we would all be in a pickle, as they would say. But she makes sure that there are volunteers there. And she does it alongside her mom. And her mom is this really sweet young lady who I but I think she's upward in her 80s, or maybe even skirting 90. Yeah, so we'll find out when when I formally introduce the person in. But together they are a dynamic duo who master the volunteers. And in 2017, this was before I started announcing. Actually, this race was the race that helped to forge my announcing career. Is I did my first long distance triathlon. And I was out there on the course, and I'm a back of the packer. And they were, kind of cleaning things up because the volunteers had to go. And she says, you can stay out here as long as you have your own water supply. And I did have my own water supply. Thank God. I carry my own water supply everywhere. And I was able to finish the race. Wasn't even last, which was really kind of cool because I thought I was the last person. But I finished, and then later realized I placed third in my division because, you show up, you try beginner's luck, you win. I won in that case. But she is the reason why I was able to even continue to try that day. And I am very grateful. Like, even stepping into the announcer and being new to this company, she was always a friendly face. And so I get to welcome you. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck, a young lady who's been in the sport for 20 years. And for 19 of those 20 years of trying, she's also been a volunteer director with Kinetic Multisports. I get to welcome to this audience, Miss Janie Langford. Janie, welcome to Try Beginner's Luck. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to be around you. Your energy, your love for the Lord, it's evident, and it everybody who's around you benefits from you. So I'm so pleased to be here with you today.
Don't make me cry. Like, I'm
Ryan's good.
It is good.
You
But
you radiate the love of the Lord, which is so awesome to be around.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But I just say thank you to you. I even found my little award in 2017. I was like, I had to go get my little they didn't give medals back then. They gave us plaques. So I was like, I got the hardware, like the real hardware.
That's
Um, but
well
that was
earned.
such a journey.
Well, you earned it,
Oh,
especially that day, because I do remember it like it was yesterday, and it was not a cool day. It was very hot.
you know, Janie, and I guess maybe let's start there. For me, I've had some really tough races the last couple of years. And I think starting in probably 2017, just some really tough races. What is it like when you are out there as a volunteer director and you see athletes who have the passion, they're struggling, it's hot, but you know what they're going through. So how are you able to like embody that and encourage them while you're doing your job?
Well, as an athlete myself, I appreciate other athletes of all levels. But as I've said many a day, I definitely respect the people that come in first, second, third. They're amazing, obviously, their level of athleticism, but the perseverance of the people that take all 8 hours to get that half Ironman done, that just blows my mind because you're digging so deep, not only physically obvious, that's obvious, but it's the mental tenacity of these athletes because it's discouraging in a sense when you're seeing all these people walking away with their bikes to their cars and you're still out there chugging away getting the job done. And but that's what takes true perseverance and tenacity, is sticking with it for all 8 hours and saying, I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
And that's why the day that you crossed that finish line in 2017, I cried, you cried, because I knew what it took for you to get that job done.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very impressive. And like I said, I've been doing this job for 19 seasons. So I've seen a lot of races, but that race still is as fresh in my memory as yesterday. So I was so impressed with you from that moment on, and we bonded.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a bonding moment. Um, I'm curious, why volunteer director? I don't even know if you have a real title. We just know that you are the make it happen captain. That's what I call you, the make it happen captain.
I like that.
But how did you say, hey, I'm signing up for this role? Because you had only been doing races a year prior to your start as the make it happen captain. So what got you into being on the volunteer or the business side of it, I would say,
Yeah. So
operational?
I can only say the hand of God, literally the hand of God. I mean, I've always been an athlete, and I started running marathons when I was 32 years old. I started doing 26.2s. I'd always done other little 10Ks, half marathons, but then I started really getting serious about my running. And then, oh gosh, when you're 32, you think 40 is so old. I said, when I turn 40, I'm doing an Ironman. So I would go to the pool and I would train for that Ironman. And I happened to meet a beautiful soul as well that was in the triathlon community. She was a race director. She knew that I lived in a lake community, that she was putting on a triathlon. And we had been a part of that lake community since I was 10 years old. My mother had started the swim team there. So we knew people from one end of it to the other end of it. So she said, would you help me coordinate volunteers for this triathlon? And I said, absolutely. So I did. And I helped her, I think it was 2 years for that particular company. And then Greg Hawkins, the owner of Kinetic Multisports, took over that particular race. And she said to me, do you mind if I give him your name? And I said, absolutely not. And so I started working with Greg just a handful of races that particular year. And then each year he kept saying, can you do all my races? Can you be volunteer coordinator for all my races? And that's literally how it happened. And so we've been working together for 19 seasons. And as the volunteer coordinator, I've gotten to know some amazing groups of volunteers, and they've come back year after year after year. Some of them I've worked with all 19 seasons. Some are one and dones. They come and oh, that's a little bit too long of a day. But for the most part, I have developed a great rapport with so many groups. And the blessing for me is I get to be around positive energy every single weekend with these athletes.
Yeah, you said so much there. Well, first I got to pause because Greg Hawkins is that guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's that man, and I absolutely adore him. He has a special place in my heart because he actually gave me my start to be an announcer. And it's not easy when you already have announcers in place, right? Because Kim Berger is that guy too,
Right.
from being an Olympic announcer. But he was like, let me develop a team. And I appreciate the approach of wanting to diversify the talent base because that's the reason why I got the opportunity. So thank you, Greg, again, even though I thank you every time I get to announce. So thank you. And, his races are better for it because it's a very diverse group of people that get to go. So you're not just stuck with one voice, right? Because there should be diversity of voices in coming into a place or a thing. But the volunteers really do make it happen. And I want to talk about those volunteers who've been with you for 19 years, because those are the ones who are probably looking forward to it. They mark it on their calendar year after year. What has it been like to work with those groups for 19 years? Because sometimes, and I've been at races where volunteers forget to show up,
Oh, yeah.
which can cause, it can change the whole race dynamic day. But let's talk about the more positive part of it, those that are committed and volunteer and have volunteered for 19 years.
Yeah, so I've had this in particular. I just worked with them this past weekend at the Kinetic Festival. It was the Knights of Columbus. It's a small little community that live in Mineral, Virginia, and they have come all 19 years and supported us. They are amazing, and I'm talking like our showtime maybe 0500, and they're already there at 0430, standing there with their coffee mugs and their flashlights and their reflective vests and ready to go to work. And, they just go above and beyond. And like I tell them all the time, you guys spoil me because you're amazing. I've had some great, there was a couple years that, obviously with COVID, things didn't happen that year. So, it's been consecutive 19 years of kind of, but there's been a couple years, maybe not. But I have had a great ROTC program over in Maryland that has supported our races. And these young adults come out, they're high schoolers. Getting up at 4 and 5 in the morning is not easy for them because they probably just went to bed an hour prior. And they come and they do a phenomenal job, encouraging the athletes, helping with packet pickup and body marking. And then I send them off to the bike course directional marshals and then the run course aid stations handing out waters and Gatorades. And, they go to the finish line and cheer everybody on and give them a medal. And so there's some very amazing volunteers that I've been blessed to work with.
Yeah. And and what I appreciate too about the volunteers who come year after year, and I've only been with you all since 2017, which is, I guess, coming up on 10 years in
Yeah.
27. So it's 8. So we're 8 right now. But we start to get the volunteers in the same areas, which really helps with continuity. And the high schoolers, especially like at General Smallwood down in La Plata, they're like, oh, we were looking forward to coming and hanging out with you. And, you get to give them the mic for a little bit to give them a chance to do something different. And they're so excited and they really take their jobs seriously. Have you ever had an instance, which I'm sure you have, where a volunteer has taken their job a little too seriously?
I don't know if I could say a little too seriously, but I will say that speaking of General Smallwood and those volunteers, they specifically asked me last 2 weeks ago when we were there, can we work with Mashonda? They specifically asked, we want to work with Mashonda. So that you mentor them in a whole nother level, which is so neat to see because they're high schoolers. You don't know what you're going to get,
Yeah.
Some really don't want to be there. But honestly, for the most part, what an amazing experience I had. And I don't know the story behind it. I just know the head instructor mentioned a volunteer that was there and he goes, look at him. He's laughing. He's smiling. His home life isn't so good right now, but look at, he's having a great day. So you don't know the influence that you're having on these young people and where it's going to take them. So I try like to make sure it's a positive experience that they say. And I did hear from the instructors that those particular kids at General Smallwood, they literally talk about it the entire year, how they cannot wait to volunteer at the race.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's because it's such a great race, and depending on the day, like it could rain and we'll be out there, cold and rainy. And so for kids to want to come back, or young people to want to come back in those type of conditions when they can be home, that speaks volumes for the entire, I say, Kinetic team, because it is a team out there that we do it together.
Yes.
Volunteerism for me, and I also discovered this last week, for my very first triathlon in 2014, I volunteered the day before the race. Now, let me be very clear. That wasn't the smartest thing for me because I was on my legs the whole time, right? And that day before, and it was hot. However, it was good to get that experience. And I didn't realize who I was volunteering and who I would get to meet. I want to talk about the importance of volunteering. I also last year had my first experience to volunteer for a full 140.6 race. And whoa,
Yeah.
that's a long day. And this is what I also experienced in that day. That morning, we volunteered at the swim, which I will volunteer at the swim start. I love the swim start. But I said, you know what? I remember when I did Maryland, the part of the race that was really the toughest for me was going around in those loops. So I want to hand out the bands so I can be able to motivate people as they're like at that halfway point of going back for that second lap or third loop, or going to the finish line, or going, back around. I can't believe a whole group of people did not show up for their shift, which caused myself and one other person to have to stay pretty much all night. What happens? Obviously, Kinetic doesn't do full 140.6 days, but what happens when people, one, don't show up to volunteer when you're counting on them?
Well, that is part of the job that's the most challenging, and it happens sometimes more than others. And fortunately, what Greg has created is a very strong team to work together. And in those situations, sometimes when I'm really short volunteers, it's us just stepping up and doing the job of the volunteers as well as our staff positions. And we just divide and conquer that way. And all of Greg's staff, the one requirement that he asks is that we are all triathletes. And that makes a huge difference because as triathletes, you know what is expected. You can foresee what needs to be done at the races. So when we're short the volunteers, it's just us stepping in and doing what we have to do to get the job done and make it better for the athletes.
I never knew that. I never knew that that was an ask. I'm sure he probably hires some people who never tried before, but they have the heart of a triathlete, or they've been around it because of their husbands or their wives. But it really does make a difference because you're able to problem solve in a different way, or anticipate what could be the need before the need actually arises. So I can see how that definitely makes a differentiating factor. Yep. Give me a memorable volunteer experience for one of your longer days, because I do know you do a few halves, excluding Patriots, because I know that one's in the memory bank. But a time where you were able to get a group of volunteers together and how it really turned the day around for you, if it started out in a not so great way. I think that's my question.
Gosh, that's a good one. There's so many. I mean, literally, as I drive to every race, I'm reminiscing on things because in years past, my 5 kids were with me and helped me. And this is kind of a funny story. I had brand new venue. We didn't keep this venue. It was a really adorable little location. And my 5 kids were all lifeguard certified. So that I guaranteed I knew I had 5 lifeguards. And then I'm like, okay, all of you pick a friend that's lifeguard certified. Now I know I've got 10 lifeguards. And I usually had them camping with me on top of it all. So I'm not just bringing a briefcase to work. I'm bringing 10 kids with me to work. But that also guaranteed that I had 10 lifeguards and 10 volunteers to get the job done. This particular location was kind of out in a little bit of a country setting. All the kids were out there lifeguarding, and I'm like, okay, after you're done, after the swim portion of the race is finished, I'm going to put you guys at a water aid station on the run course, and you can hand out waters and Gatorades to people. And so they did. But what I didn't realize was there was a farm right there, and there was a silo, and they all decided to climb the silo ladder. So as the athletes are coming back, they were like, "Hey, you have the best volunteers out there. They're on the top of the barn of the silo." And I'm like, "Oh, those are my children doing that. Great." So they kept me humble, but they got the job done. So, but I have millions of those kind of great fun stories for sure.
5 children and the camping. Yes, let me be clear. Janie drives to all of the races in this little cute camper operated at that time, or operated depending on power source, by a generator for the weekend. And I think it's the most effective way to travel. And your mom, Miss Marilyn, who's become a staple at these races, your mom is how old, Janie?
Okay, so she turned 90 last October,
Oh my God. So she's about to be 91.
about to be 91, and she would not miss these races. She started 4 years ago, coming to all the races with me. And yes, she's like the little mayor of Kinetic
Kinetic.
Multisports town.
Yes, she is. If Miss, it's like Miss Janie is now a staple and gives the best hugs, and she's cute, small, petite woman, and it's great. And we were hoping to get her on too today, just to kind of be in honor of mothers, because her mom is also an athlete, and she told me the other day. I think I saw you all. We were at Cherry Blossom check-in, and she was like, "I just retired a year ago," or something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
something like that.
what? And retired from running. So she was still running races up until what, 89?
So she did her last half marathon at 85.
85. Okay.
And then in January, for her to honor her 90th year, she did a 5K.
Wow. Come on.
I know.
It's like, keep moving, keep doing the things that you love, that's feeding your soul, because it really does make a difference. And I'm sure, like, being around and looking forward to these events with you, because she gets to see people, and people are like, she is the mayor.
Yep.
That's it. She's the
She's
mayor.
mayor of Kinetic Multisports town for sure.
She is. And that's wherever Kinetic goes with the over. How many races does Kinetic have now?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I never count. Isn't that funny? I'd have to get the shirt out and look on the back.
We'll say a lot.
A lot.
We'll leave it at that. A
A lot.
lot.
Yeah.
How has it been working with your mom and being able to travel with her? And she also assists and aids with the volunteerism and just making it such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, she's an amazing volunteer. I have to be honest with you. I mean, she has done every. I think she's pretty much done every job in the last 4 years. At some point, she's not real crazy about body marking, and she says, "Please don't have me body mark because my handwriting is horrible." That's what she'll tell me. So I don't make her do body marking, but she she does phenomenal in the packet pickup area. When I'm a little bit short volunteers, I'll put her in there and she gets organized there. This past weekend, she helped me at the finish line. Everything about the whole environment just motivates her. And, she just gets, so you mentioned the little RV, and she'll start prepping a couple days prior to our departure. She'll start putting soda drinks and waters and snacks and getting it all. That's her little thing. And it just makes her, she wouldn't miss it for anything. And, she's 90 years old going on 70, I swear.
No, seriously, she really is. And it's aspirational, like it's really aspirational, that if you just keep going, keep doing it and doing what you love, and just movement. I think movement is the health beneficiary, right? That we sometimes get stuck in, especially those of us who are more sedentary in our seats for work, getting up and walking and moving around, or having a standing desk. What do you think? Miss Marilyn isn't here, but I want to just honor her because she is
Yes,
such a big
absolutely.
part of it. And I know she's not feeling well now because her daughter had her in the yard working earlier
No, no,
today.
wait. She was on the John Deere tractor. I was doing the weed whacking and the mowing. She loves her little John Deere tractor.
So, okay. So that's even more like she's driving a John Deere
Yes,
tractor at
yes.
90 years
At
old.
90 years old, nothing stops this thing. I mean, I just let me help you. I'll do the grunt work. You do that. And we got I don't know if you can see behind me, but we've got 3 acres of land. So last week we never got around to doing anything because we were so busy. So, but she is, first of all, she has a history that's beyond this podcast that we could even talk about right now. That's a whole separate historical moment. But
Moment.
she has such a background. And, just to summarize briefly, she started coaching us swimming. I was 4 years old. We lived in Hawaii at the time. My dad was military, and we moved every 2 years. So we went from Hawaii to Kansas to California to Maryland. We were all over, and she coached every year our swim team. So that's how we got. So she's been involved with coaching and sports for her whole life. And so as we got older, we helped her coach. She would give us little groups and we would take them off to the side. So she always says, watch what you make your children do, because now then they'll make me do it. So now as we chuckle at it, the role has reversed. She now comes to work with me and helps me get the job done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a gosh, I have talked to so many people that say how lucky you are to spend all these days with your mom. And I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah,
couldn't.
absolutely. It's truly a blessing that she one wants to be a part of it because moms can make their own choices, especially when they have their
Absolutely.
own lives to live.
Yep.
But you get to be quote unquote boss of mom, and I'm sure that's a pretty good place to be, and just the time you get to spend with her. So let's transition a little bit. So shout out to you, Miss Marilyn. We love you. Thank you for being the mayor of Kinetic.
She's amazing.
You started swimming at 4 years old, and you've been in sport all your life. What sports have you played throughout your life?
Okay. So my whole family, I had a family of four in our family. We swam competitively from the time I was 4 years old until 18 years old. That was always, we did swim all year round when we were young, but as we got older, it just became just summer league swimming. So that
Mm-hmm.
we were always around water. As I got older, I think I was around 10 years old, I took a big interest in gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
So I did gymnastics probably then till I was 18 years old. And then when I went to college, that's when cheerleading was really incorporating gymnastics into it. So I was never really a cheerleader, but I was a gymnast that could tumble and flip and twist. And so when I was in college, I was a collegiate cheerleader. And then when I got, when you get away from those sports that you can't do anymore, that's when you start other sports.
Mm-hmm.
Example, triathlons. You get the rush of competing. You feel the adrenaline while you're doing it. You finish and go, okay, now I know why I signed up for that race.
Yeah. So, out of all the different sports that you do or have done, which one brings you the most joy?
To be honest with you, running. I know not many people will say that, but running for sure is my true passion.
Mm.
And I literally started running after I had my eldest son, who he is currently 35. And I literally went 1 mile. And I'd be so proud of myself. I just ran a mile. And then gradually it built up to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. And then I think when I had my number three son, who is 30, all my girlfriends had done the Marine Corps Marathon and they made it sound so exciting. And I said, oh, I think I want to try that. So that's 30 years ago, I started doing marathons. And I question that judgment some days. I still do them. So I figured if God gave me the gift to do 26 miles, then I better do it for him.
Yes. And last year, your son did Marine Corps.
Yes, my number two son and his wife have done it at least 5 times. I think they've done that. Um, so he's said no more than a 10K anymore for him. So Um,
Now, are you planning on doing the 50th year Marine Corps this year?
no. I did Marine Corps 21 times, and that was 20 times too many. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Marine Corps is one of those races where you
It's
do
hard.
it once, you've done it. I mean, it's good, especially if you live in DC and you don't want to travel to do a 26.2 mile. But if you live in DC and you run around these places,
Yeah.
it can be an overkill, but for some, they love it. So no shade, but
No, I took me 20 times to figure it out. So, I mean, I loved every time I did it. I'm done with it. But, now I stick with things like I do the Disney, the Dopey Challenge every year in January. And of course, you and I saw each other at the Cherry Blossom
Cherry
weekend.
Blossom,
Love that weekend of running. That's fun.
it is. So you're more into shorter distances.
Actually, I'm really am not a short. I can't stand 5Ks or 10Ks. I'm not a short. I don't feel good until after I hit like 4 or 5 miles.
Mm,
So I'm still doing marathons. I have definitely gotten slower with age, which doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out.
well, my hope is as I get older, I get faster.
Well, you probably will. I mean, everybody's by you hit a peak and then you kind of
Go
so
down.
you just go out there and just get the job done. So
Yeah. So now, how do you train and work every weekend doing triathlon?
so cup of coffee is the first thing I have in the morning, and the second thing I do is go for a run. So those are like the order of my day. And then I come back and if I need to coordinate with volunteers and stuff, everything is done via email. I start sending emails to my groups and say, okay, this is what we're planning to do. This is what time you need to be there. These are the nitty gritty details. Usually I start that process. Our first race is in April. So I'll start like the end of January, beginning
Mm-hmm.
of February. I'll start sending emails to volunteer groups that have worked with me prior. And I'll say, save this date. Um, and then I send a little bit more details, maybe a couple weeks later. And then usually I'll check on them 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 3 weeks out, and 1 week out, and just say, weather's looking good this weekend, dress the part because no matter what, we're having this race.
Mm. So on race day and or when you're setting up, say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, do you still work out before the races?
Friday, definitely. I mean, if I'm driving away on Friday, I'll definitely go for a run on Friday morning. And I do
Mm-hmm.
3 nights a week is also weight training for me. So I don't know if you could see it from here. Hold on. Uh, let's see if I can. I've got a little, I've got a she shed back
I
here
see it.
as my she shed. And it's got all my weights and my TRX and my stability balls and all my gadgets that I work out with. And I do that 3 times a week as well. But running is every single day. And I really want to get back to swimming. I miss
Nice.
swimming so much.
Nice, nice. Now I want to take you back 20 years to your very first triathlon.
Okay.
Tell me the race, the distance, and take me through getting there in the morning. If you can remember, uh, swim, T1, bike, T2, and run to the finish.
Okay. So this is a pretty funny story because being that I was a marathon runner, that the run aspect was not intimidating at all to me. And having a swim background, the swim was not intimidating to me. So I had to learn a little bit on the bike. The very first bike I rode in my very first triathlon, which was Gulf Coast Triathlon, half-Ironman in Panama City, Florida in 2004. And it was a half iron. So I'm on this heavy duty road bike, not even a tri bike. And it was, I think the heat index that day got to like 102 degrees.
Mm.
I know it was in May. It was actually, I'm almost certain it was actually on my 40th birthday because I Googled it that way. And so, swim went great. I go to start, and my sister, who actually started triathlons before I did, she said, you need to get right up front because you got a swim background. Get right up front. So I got right up front And I went out, and man, oh man, did I hyperventilate. Went out too fast. I was gasping for air. I said to myself, and this is when you had mass groups start together. So I'm like, girlfriend, you got to pull it together because you got 100 women that are about to swim over top of you. So I just started humming as I exhaled, because I think what it is you nervous, you hold your breath. So I started humming, and I was able to work through it. And so the swim actually ended up being super good. Um, Bike, okay. The run, I felt awesome because that was my niche. Um, when I finished, like I said, it was over 100 degrees heat index. Um, People were passing out all around me. They were fainting, they were passing out. My friends that were standing there cheering me on looked at me and said, "Wow, look at you. You look great. What's going on?" I go, "Well, you know what that means." They're like, "No, what?" I go, "I didn't try hard enough." So that being said, that was my first experience. And obviously I had held back a little bit and had a lot to learn. But it was great. It was a great experience.
See, most people start with the sprint, super sprint, or an Olympic. You dove right into the half. What made you feel like you wanted to go straight to the half prior to doing anything else? Was it because your sister, again, you said your sister had done it prior to you, so you kind of knew, or maybe had some idea of what to expect? But is that always been the case? Like, I know you also mentioned that you don't like shorter distances. So I'm wondering, was that always the case?
So like I said, I think coming from a run background and a swim background, those two are the two more intimidating. For most people that I talk with, they're more intimidated by those open water swim. This was actually an ocean swim. So they're more intimidated by the swim, and a lot of people just don't like running. So they're always more like, you can make up, and it's true. Being powerful on the bike is the key right there, because you can make up the most time on two wheels. Um, I don't know. I just wasn't intimidated by the distance. So I just felt like that kind of met my needs more because I was a marathoner. So I think that's why I went with the half. And then my very second triathlon was my full Ironman. So I just jumped off the cliff.
Oh, wow. Okay, we got to still go back to the first, like the
Okay.
swim, because I think just because you're a good swimmer doesn't mean you won't have panic attacks or won't
Absolutely.
get uncomfortable in the
Right.
water and have to, calm yourself down. But I think being a stronger swimmer gives you the confidence to be able to self-calm and self-soothe while you're in the water. The fact that you mentioned humming made me chuckle because I am a hummer as I
Good.
swim. And it helps me to keep
Yep.
like beat and to calm down. And this one guy, I'll never forget, like last year I was swimming. He was like, "You might swim a little faster if you wasn't making all that noise in the water."
That's a riot.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess people can't hear that. Cause I'm thinking it's in my head, like, me like, doing my little hums or whatever. Cause I don't swim with music, but I make up my own beats
Yep.
and hum to myself. So that just made me chuckle because I have not heard anyone else say that they hum while they swim.
You
And it
know,
is so soothing.
it is so soothing. I just gave that advice yesterday at the Kinetic Sprint. This
Mm-hmm.
lady, I was body marking, and she said to me, "I'm really nervous about the swim." And I said, "I'm going to give you a couple pointers from my own experience." I went out way too fast my very first triathlon and hyperventilated. And I said, but by nature, I started humming, and it got everything right where it needed to be. And I said, find a tune that you can hum and exhale with it. And I said, it'll help you. So yeah, obviously the best teacher is life lessons, isn't it?
Sure is. Yeah, it sure is. And then learning from others' mistakes, which is why I think Try Beginner's Luck is so cool because you get, I'm sharing stories from different people from different vantage points. It's not just me telling my boring stories, but people sharing their experiences, and you're getting that opportunity to learn and potentially not make the same mistakes. And even if you do make the same mistakes, having the solution in mind because you've heard it being done before and that it will be okay. And so
Yep.
I think that's one of the things that I appreciate and being able to offer the sport of to new beginners.
Yeah. It is it's and that's another thing I absolutely love about my job.
Hmm.
I love standing there talking to people like, for example, the gal yesterday that was nervous about the swim and me just saying, hey, just find a happy tune and hum it out. And then there was another gal that came up to me yesterday and she was like, all right, it's the water 72. What should I do? Wear a wetsuit? Not wear a wetsuit? I said, personally, I would not wear a wetsuit at 72. That's just me. I said, she said, I don't like the way it constricts me. And I said, 72 is so doable. You'll be fine. And she came and found me at the end of the race. She said, thank you for your advice. 72 was great. I felt awesome without having the wetsuit on. And that happens almost as much as me guiding the volunteers to what I need them to be doing,
Yeah.
as I can talk to the athletes and kind of just from the 20 years of experience of what I've gone through and saying, hey, watch out for this, do this, have fun. So a, it's a win-win situation for me to be around all these athletes and races.
And you never have the same day twice at your job,
No, I do
even if
not.
there's two races back to back. Like each day presents new challenges. So, how do you handle with the continuous variables each weekend with no continuity? Or have you developed a way to have the constants so that you can deal with the variables of each weekend?
Well, so I think a lot of it has to do with people's personality. And I just, I raised 5 children. What continuity can be in doing that?
True.
Pure chaos at all times. So, it's like herding cats. It's like you just don't know what you're going to get. Fortunately, I have the personality that I can just kind of roll with it. Yeah, I'm not going to lie that there's times when volunteers don't show. It makes my stomach turn. It's like, okay, I got to quickly, my brain has to go crazy. Like, let's start thinking this, and this, and, you know, make it happen.
And I've been in situations where that has happened. We're like, so where's our volunteer? Because we get a little selfish and be like, but where's our person? And you're like, it's
Yeah.
coming, coming.
And they don't come.
And then they don't.
Still going. I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, okay, they should be here by now. You know,
It's so funny. I mean, because you sit back and you laugh because those are sometimes, I guess, in my position, the first world problems. Like we don't need volunteers, but it's great to have them. And so
yeah.
you get so accustomed to having them that you're like, but where, okay, but that's cool. What has been your favorite distance to do? Like, do you prefer the 140.6 or the 70.3 when you're trying?
Um, Definitely not the full, full. I don't have time for training like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too time consuming for me personally. Um, I definitely do not like a sprint at all. They are just hair on fire, start to finish, and I'm just not a short distance person. I would say Olympic or even halves are
Mm-hmm.
are my happy place for sure because you can kind of pace yourself through those.
Mm-hmm.
You feel comfortable with it. Um, yeah, I mean the hard part for me is like I said 10 times over here, I have a swim background and a running background. Bike is my weakest link. So if I'm in a shorter distance, 9 out of 10 times I get passed on the bike. So I
Mm-hmm.
need a little bit longer to go on the run to catch people.
Mm-hmm.
So that pays off for me. Um, so I'm going to say Olympic and halves.
And halves. When you're not being the make it happen captain, what do you do?
So I have the best job in the house. I'm a grandma. So
Oh,
I get I get him several times in the week, which is super fun. I love to do projects. I love to work out, um, spend time with my family, that kind of stuff. Just your normal stuff.
I love it. I love
Family
it.
first.
I love that. And that's true because, you accompanied your son at his race and was there to watch the baby while, your son and his wife were doing Marine Corps. And that's not an easy feat because that's 26.2 miles at minimum was what, maybe 2.5, 3 hours because your son is pretty fast.
Yeah, I that particular year that they did it, I said, I'll babysit. and it was like 88 degrees or something crazy. And they came back and they were like, that was miserable. I said, I was walking around with the baby all day thinking how hot it was, and I wasn't even running.
Yeah.
So,
It's
being a
a
grandma is, as people say, you think it's great being a mommy, which was great, but being a grandma just takes it up a notch.
wow. Well, Miss Janie, thank you so
John, it was
much.
my pleasure.
We're not finished yet. Now,
Oh,
we have rapid fire, and then I'm gonna let you go because you are outside, and I know we are in this area expecting some not so good weather, but we're
yes,
going to make it
ma'am.
happen. So thank you so much um, for just being who you are and being and doing a job that many people may not say thank you. So thank you. I mean, yes, you do get a paycheck, but you make sure that there are people to hand out waters, to do body marking, to stand at cones in the sun with no shade, and they do it and do it with a smile. And so thank you for getting some of the best volunteers to help and assist us athletes, and when I'm on the other side announcing, and just those who are working to make sure that the experience is just something that is enjoyable and eventful and that people want to come back to. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. My pleasure. And thank you for all you do.
It's my pleasure. So with that said, favorite music or favorite song that you like to work out to?
Ooh, I'm a big Bon Jovi kind of gal.
Oh,
Anything Bon Jovi sings, I will run to and work out to.
I love it. I love it. What is your go-to workout these days?
Okay, besides running, I like, and it's kind of like a hit workout.
Mm-hmm.
I've got all kinds of little equipment, like I said, down there in the she shed, and I have stations and do a minute and a half at each station, but in between it's 30 seconds of cardio, like jumping rope. Then you move to the next station, then jump rope for 30 seconds, and then the next station. So to keep the heart rate kind of up the whole time for the workout.
I love it. I love it. Where is the best place that you've traveled to do a triathlon?
Wow, that's a good one. There's two favorite ones that I've done up in New Hampshire, Lake Winnipesaukee. It was called Timberman. Oh my gosh, absolutely beautiful up there. And crisp weather. It's in August, but the weather is really crisp. And then I think the second one would be Gulf Coast Triathlon down in Panama City, Florida. Beautiful.
Which they just had
Yes, probably this weekend.
this weekend. So that
Yeah,
means your birthday is around this time. When is your birthday?
I had it May 8th.
Well, happy belated birthday. Well, happy belated
Well,
birthday.
when you get this age, you don't really focus on it too much.
But still. And I'm really excited because Latifa was on our 141st episode a couple of episodes ago. TriFox is her Instagram handle, but she broke the tape. The first African American
That's awesome.
woman to break the tape
Wow.
in any Ironman distance race. So that was really cool around the world. So that was a major thing for us when I learned about it last night. So shout out to Latifa, who was episode 141, if you want to go
That's
check it
awesome.
out.
Yep.
And it's a favorite of Janie's race, the Gulf Coast in Panama City, Florida.
Yep.
Um, I know that you said that you don't love the bike, but if you had your preference of a hill, flat, hilly,
Right.
or rolling hill, which terrain would you choose and why?
So I'm not a fan of going down. I don't have a problem going up, and I certainly don't mind flat. I get nervous going super fast going down. So I'm not totally opposed to uphill, to the hills. It's just I don't want really steep downs.
So you want a rolling hill
I
situation?
think a rolling would be the best.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. That people like for me, I'm like, let's go down because I can go down faster than I can go.
Well,
We play to our strengths.
when I was young and my body hitting pavement wouldn't bother me so much, I probably would have been faster. But now I'm like, I don't want to hit that pavement.
No, I'm just saying in terms of fast because of body weight. Like my body weight is easier to take me down because
Right.
whereas smaller body shapes, it's
Yes.
easier to go up. But I'm like, once I'm up, let me go down because
Yeah.
it's great. Now I'm gonna ask the same question for running because you're a runner. Do you prefer to run on flat, a hilly course, or a rolling hill course?
Definitely hilly.
Mm,
Short little legs going up. An advantage to everybody else.
nice. And so, what would be your technique that you can share with someone about running a hilly course?
So basically, when you're running up a hill, obviously leaning into it really helps, and really kind of staying a little bit more on your toes and leaning into it. And really, when I used to teach a running club to the kids, I would tell them to play the drums, play the drums, play the drums, and really using those arms will help you get that momentum going up.
Play the drums. Now everyone will be playing the drums when they're running. Like,
Play the drum, play.
boom. That
Yep.
makes so much that's brilliant. Open water swimming, river swim, or lake swim?
Gosh, I would take any of those, to be honest with you. Like I said, the more the challenging swim, the better for me.
Okay.
So any of the three would be great. The last choice would be a pool.
Hence why I didn't say it, because I was like, I don't feel like she's a pool girl, like
Nope.
at all.
No.
Okay. Who would be your dream training partner, alive or historical?
Ooh, that's a good one. So the reason I started marathons, I can remember to the day, it was in 1982. I watched Greta Weitz cross the finish line at New York Marathon, and I said one day I will be a marathon runner. She was my idol, and I would love, she's no longer alive, but I would love to have run with Greta Weitz. That would have been amazing.
So now I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, wait a minute, Miss Janie. So
It took
you
me
are, oh,
years. It took me years before I actually did it.
wow.
1982 was when I watched. No, I'm sorry. It was 1983 that I recall watching my first marathon, a New York marathon, and saying I want to do it. But it was quite a few years later that I finally did it.
Hmm. Taper, do you love it or hate it?
Hate it. I feel so lazy. But many, many years ago, when you used to have old school magazines, I read the best thing about tapering. It said, when us women taper, we're actually getting caught up on all the jobs we weren't doing for the last 12 weeks. so
That
we
is very
really,
true.
so we really don't taper.
That's really true. Now, this next question is going to be a part of like rest and recovery. What does rest and recovery look like to you if you're running every day of the week?
Well, I go back to this. We have a pool in the backyard that I get in that water and once we open it in the month, I get in that water every single night. It is amazing how it recovers my body, completely recovers it. I think it's just being weightless. It's not that I do anything other than a little stretching in the pool, but it amazes me how my muscles and everything feel so great afterwards.
Hmm. What's your fail-proof method not to bonk in any race?
Ooh, proper nutrition.
Mhm. And give in 30 seconds or less, give an appeal as to why volunteerism in sport is so important.
It's so important, and it's often hard to get triathletes to volunteer, but I think it's so critical for them to see how hard it is to be a good volunteer. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. It's equally as exhausting as being the actual athlete. And I think it's very important for them to learn how to appreciate those volunteers that are taking care of them so that they can accomplish their goals and their dreams.
Love that. And Miss Janie, we don't let anyone leave the podcast without asking them a particular question. Do you pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break?
Oh my lands. I pee like a racehorse on that bike. Sorry to say.
Don't be sorry.
TMI, right?
Do not
Shoot
be sorry.
fast.
I think last week I asked, you got any tips on how to pee on the bike properly so people.
Stand up. Stand up and give a couple coughs.
And then for those who are riding behind, be careful and beware.
I was cautiously, when I would have to do that, I would make sure that there was nobody watching the flood that was occurring.
Oh, it's so funny. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for being here. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to write a review, share this with your friends, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and we're on YouTube. So if you want to
Oh,
see
I'd love to.
this and the cool new yellow background I
I
got
love
with the
it.
Try Beginners Luck logo, me too. I love it so much. Be sure to check us out at YouTube as well, or you can listen to us both and give us credit, and we'll love to see that too. Well, that's it for us. Whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you truly always win. Get out here, try. It is the season to try. And my name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines on social media, and Mashonda Shines just in life. And for right now, we are out. Peace. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.